Hi, today I would like to show you the demo how to use the expense management system to help us to manage our actual forecast and budget at ITNS Finance. So let's get started on the design of the system. The system gets break down into 4 tiers for expense management template. For tier number 1, this is the tier for transit and GLs. And there is breakdown as a trees for the tier number 2 for vendors and product services. In tier 2, we actually do the budget as well. So tier 2, it breaks down into the sub accounts and the PO numbers. In tier 3, we actually do the forecast, and it will be break down into the invoice, which is tier number 4. So let's get into the system. Every user have their own login ID, so we can track the activities on the system. The system is built front ends either Excel, but the database will be the SQL Server, so everything will be stored in database, which will have us to do the analyze later. So I just log in. In the first thing you see is the models. The models here, we have several models, but since I lost some data into 2017, I will open the models 2017. First thing we see is tier 0. Tier 0 is the combination of all the tier together. So for example, the yellow, the orange one is for tier 1, blue for tier 2, and green for tier 3, and purple for tier number 4. I will explain this further, but let's go to tier 1. So I will choose the option start new. So when I do this, it will open the first tier, which is tier 1. This is the transit and GL combination. So for example, the first one is transit 02444, and there is the ID associated with that. The IDs were generated by the system. Let's try to add new transit and GL combination into the system. So I choose random some transit and GL. So when I add into the system, you will see that on the left hand side, there's no numbers associated with that because we don't have any budget actual forecast binding to this new transit and GL. The rest, you have to see the orange numbers. That's the budgets that I can load into the system. It is a partial of the budget, and its number is not completely correct. So when I click to detail, actually drill down into the branches for this chosen transit 02 something, and so this is the list of vendors and product services that associate with that transit and GL combination, which is ID number 1. So let's choose one items. The first items with the ID is 132. Remember, 132 is the one that we were working on for tier number 2. Remind you that in tier number 2, that's where we do the budget, and also that is can get you to the tier number 3, which is the PO numbers and contractors. So let's show you the budget. So when I select the budget, it will go to the budget. In the budget view, we have the incremental time. This case is 4, which is the this is come from the forecast of Q2. We have 2 lines, which is COA and CDE. So COA is currency of account and CDE is a Canadian equivalent. Since everything was planned in the Canadian dollars, so both lines are the same. I'm not going to detail for budgets here because it's very similar to forecast and the actual. So I go to detail so that I can drill down to tier number 3, which is the POs, PO and contract. Everything is blank here because I have no data in this tier. So let's try to set up some PO associated with vendors, selected vendors, and product services, which ID 132. So I add new vendors and I put the name in test 1. The system has set the IDs 1 for these vendors. and then I add another vendor is level 2, and later I will add another vendor's test 3. So after adding these 3 vendor into the system, you notice that in this tier 3s we can do the forecast, and also we can drill down to the actuals in this tier. So in tier 3, after the 3 items get added, it will add into the drop down list. So I just select 1, it will load the tier number 1, and I select 2, is load tier test 2. So there is no data in the left hand side because we have no data associated with this item yet. So let's go to tier number 4 to do the actual first, because forecast it depends on actuals. So when I select the detail, I get to next tiers, which is tier 4. That's where we do the actuals. So let's choose the currency is CA, and then choose the invoice. In this ways, in this one you have to put the invoice number. I just put the random something for testing, so I put test 1, and I choose the deferral is monthly deferral, which means that the money will be spread evenly for every month. And because I choose full, so that there is no half deferral for first month and last month. So I have to choose the effective date. In this case, I choose effective date is December, and I choose coverage date is November. It's very important to know the effective date and coverage date, because that's how the money get divided. So the coverage date starts from November, however effective dates in December. So you will see no amount for November, but then the amounts will be at first start from December. So you see the amounts will break evenly, but for December the amount twice the other amount, because it will add from the November. So if I add this record, you will see that from the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, there's some new items show up with a yellow. And here when we add these actuals, we will see 2 lines with either COA and CDE as well. And since it will blend in Canadian, so everything that is the same for those records. For tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, the actual actually show up, because see the structures is as the tree structure, so everything we add in the bottom will get drawn up. So go back to tier number 3 to do the view. You see that there are 3 records that we create before, but for tier number 2 there's new line showing up, which is the actuals for it. But for the items number 1 and number 3, there's no actual associated with that, so it's blank. So let's add another invoice into items number 1, which is PO test 1. So let's add another one. In this case, I would like to choose the currency as GPP, and then the entry types is accrual. Accruals mean that you have booked the amounts in the selected month, and then it will reverse out in the next month. Here I choose effective days is January, and then choose I actually click it, which is raise the issue. So I just do uncheck what the selected items I have. So I would change the date for effective date back to November. And I choose the coverage date start from November. Oh, so the effective date is December and the coverage date is November. So in this case, the dollars will be hit on December and get reversed out on January. So if you look at this, or look at in the top, you see the numbers for actual for tier 1 and tier 2 will change, and there's some new records will show in tier 3 because it's nothing there yet, because we haven't any invoice for that selected item 1 for tier 3. So now the numbers show up, and this amount is the the invoice we just add into the system. Let's go back to tier number 3. You'll see that in tier number 3 is there for ID 1 and ID 2, which is the invoice, which is test 1 and test 2 purchase order. There's the actual showing up. The total amount show up there is the same, is what is going to show up in tier number 1. So which is $9,000 for both two invoices that we just create. So then you can choose. Before we go to forecast, let we add one more invoice for ID for purchase order test 1, which is ID 1, to show you that there can be multiple invoices that associates to one purchase order. So let's add one new invoice into the system. To notice this one, since we choose a different currencies, not Canadian, so you see that COA showed the original numbers that we put in the system, but the CDEs will be converted using the rates that's set up in the system. Here I choose US, and then I put here I put test 1 for the invoice. The system will not accept this because we already have one invoice named test 1. But I just want to put it there to demonstrate you that there's a lot of checking to validate for your input here, and you have to make sure that your invoice number have to be unique for every selected tier 3 items. So here I choose effective days is April. So, and because I choose that journal entries, so there's only one single item hit on April, and since there's a test 1, the system raised the message that you cannot add the item into the system. So I change it to test 2 and add it. When I add this one into this invoice into tier number 4, you see that the number on the top it changed as well. I can go back to tier number 3 to show that the number actually changed. So everything in the bottom, which is tier number 4, get draw up to tier number 3, and draw up to tier number 2, and tier number 1. So let me show you tier number 1 again. Remember, when at first you can go back to the previous to see that when we start, we only have orange colors on the left hand side, which is the budget. Now in tier number 1, the first line still be empty because we haven't done anything with the first items we add into tier number 1. However, for the ID 1, we have 2 lines, which the first line is the budget that from original, and the second line is the actual we just create. So we choose ID 1 for tier 1, then we drill down to ID 132 for tier 2, and then add 3 invoice into it. So in order to go back to what we have, we can do the drill down for each selected item. But however, I want to show you the faster way is that tier 0. Tier 0, as I say to you, is the combined of 4 tier together. So if you look at that, the first rows is empty. The second rows that we do from ID 1, and we choose the 132, and then we have the invoice. We have the purchase order ID 1, and we add 2 invoice, which is 2 and 3. So let me go to the right hand side. I will show you not this columns, the next columns here, right here, the invoice number is test 1 and test 2. Okay, and then remember that we add another invoice. The first invoice we add was ID 1 into the purchase order test 2. And for the purchase order test 3, we have no invoice, so there is no ID for tier 4. Here I select ID 1, which is the purchase order test 1. I do that, and I do the view mode so that I can drill all the system will have you drill all the way down into the test 1 purchase orders. So the purchase orders, it belong to the transit show up on the both and from the vendor, which ID 132. So you can look at the tier 1, tier 2 to see where these items belong to. So now let's go to the forecast. So when I get to the forecast, I can choose let's choose the currency in US. So on the left hand side, it will show you the currency that apply for every month. In forecast and budget, there is one single currency rate, FX rate to apply for the version of the forecast or the budget. Here in the forecast, we in the Q1 right now. So we add in the dollars in 40, 50, and 60s, and then we add the item. You see on the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3, there's a new item show up, which is blue, which are the forecast we just add. And as the same thing, as I mentioned before, the system always keep track of two item, which is COA, which is the dollars that you put original, and the CD is the Canadian equivalent, using the system FX rate to convert for the forecast Q1. Go back to the tier, the amount is different because we use the US, and then so the system convert it. So in tier 1 and tier 2, the forecast show up, as well as tier 3. However, look at tier 3, we don't have budget because the budget is planning at tier number 2. At tier 3 is required a detail level, so you cannot break the amount from tier 2 down to tier 3 for the budget. So this only show up 2 items. Then add another forecast for task 2 purchase order. Here I put 70s, 90s, with using the currency is CD Canadian, so it should not have there should not have any difference. And when I add that there, you see that the column Z and AB actually change by the amount I just add in, and so that's 2 forecasts roll up. So go back to tier number 3 to look at this. Remember at beginning we only have 3 lines, which is 1, 2, 3 purchase order, but now we have 5 lines because we just have the actual and forecast for purchase order 1 and the actual and forecast for purchase number task 2. So go back to tier 2, you see that the items 132 is the item that we choose to have the purchase order for this demo. So we have 3 lines. So the first line is budget, the second line is forecast, and the yellow lines is actual. So here I can show you the search. The search is applied for all the tier 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here I want to search the word GB and start and everything in the and random characters in the back. So I put the percentage and I do the search. So the GBM Finance actually show up as the vendor for this case. So you can do a lot more with this. So thank you for watching. So hopefully everything is clear. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me as vit.win@scotiabank.com, or you can email me at vit.hh.tm@gmail.com in case that you cannot reach me through my Scotia email. Thank you for the demo. Hopefully you have understand it and can use it to help you manage